Okay, just laid the baby down for a nap, so now I have some time to take some photos of my leg warmers.
I was so excited when I met my bride because I had been waiting for a long time, and she was literally everything that I had been looking for and everything that I had been waiting for.
We always wanted to have a family. I know I always wanted to be a mom, and I knew that Rick would always make a great dad. And I guess you really don't understand until you begin that process that it doesn't necessarily come easily for people, and for us it didn't.
I think I was naive when it came to the thought of growing a family. It was much more difficult, much more challenging.
We struggled for over a year to start a family through a lot of ups and downs and different trials, and a really early on loss and miscarriage that really rocked us. And when we got pregnant again a few months after that, I was scared that it would end in miscarriage again. I hadn't had a successful pregnancy. And
after the miscarriage, we rebounded fairly quickly, and for whatever reason, when we got pregnant again, which ended up being Halle, I thought, this is it.
Once we got past those early stages and those real, crucial stages in a pregnancy, my pregnancy was great. I didn't have any morning sickness, totally smooth. It really was like, this is it. We're past the high risk stage of, or the risky stages in pregnancy, and then really did not have a doubt after that. I loved it. I loved being pregnant.
We'd heard and read about and had talked to many people that said, once you get past that, the risk of something happening drops tremendously. So it was a breath of fresh air for us. We felt like we've made it, we've gotten through it. Melissa's doing fantastic, happy as can be, optimistic, full of hope. Yeah, we thought everything was going to be smooth sailing once Halle came along. And seemingly it did go very smooth for quite a while through the pregnancy.
I was headed on my way to work one day and had a doctor's visit, and just a routine checkup. And I do remember that it was a different nurse, and that she had said that my doctor was in that my doctor was in a delivery, and so that she was going to do my appointment, and I hadn't had that nurse before. And she went through the regular checks of the appointment, and she said, something isn't right and I need to get your doctor. And I was like, what? Something's not right? And she left the room really quickly, and that was like, what's not right? Why would something not be right? My doctor came in, and right away, whatever that nurse told her, she was very concerned. I just remember the look on her face and the words out of her mouth were, you're going to have some hard decisions to make. Hard decisions about my pregnancy, about this baby that's growing inside of me. I just was like, you must have the wrong person, or you must have, you've got to be kidding me. And the next words she said were, Melissa, you're going to deliver this baby within 24 hours and it's not going to survive. Those words were so earth-shattering, because 10 minutes ago I was having a completely normal pregnancy. That I could go from being so normal to get in this hospital gown, we're wheeling you into surgery right now.
To get a call that something's really wrong, I was pretty shaken. I was pretty scared because I didn't know if Melissa was okay. I didn't know if our baby girl was okay. I didn't know anything. I just knew that something pretty devastating had happened. I remember as I went into the hospital and I met her doctor right away. She came out right as I was coming in, and she told me everything went great. Melissa's doing good. The baby is okay, but she's going to be in the hospital for the next 4 to 5 months.
I think that should have probably been, oh my gosh, 5 months, what am I going to do? But we knew the situation was so grave that I would do anything. I would lay on my back for 5 months, which is as they said I was going to do to save this baby. I remember coming out of recovery from the surgery and seeing Rick for the first time, and all I really remember at that point is the doctor did what she could, and the surgery was successful, and really, like, we got this. Like, we got this now.
We didn't see it as poor us, this is a bad deal, we've got a bad rap. We just saw it as this is part of it, and we're gonna make the best of it.
You know, I'm here laying confined to this bed in the hospital, and I always wanted to make my daughter a blanket, and I was like, what better place to do it now that I'm trapped here on this bed? That was really when kind of a change happened in my mind. Instead of really wasting the hours away or sleeping the hours away, I actually had a project to do and to accomplish, and it was for her. I mean, really, right there in that bed is where my love for knits grew. I felt good. For as much as you can, laying in a hospital bed and eating hospital food. But there was that night after being in the hospital for a couple of weeks that the nurses changed staff, and my night nurse came in and asked if I needed anything, and I grabbed my book like I always did to read a chapter before bed, and suddenly I felt my water break, and I just knew. I knew what it was. That morning when the doctor got in at 6, she came and did an ultrasound, and she was actually still positive. Like, I don't know, I'm not totally convinced your water's broken, your contractions haven't picked up, all the signs are pretty stable and normal, and I'm not convinced. It looks like there's still good pockets of water in here, and the baby's doing great, the heart rate was fine. And literally, as she finished the ultrasound and was leaving, I remember the contractions really, like, suddenly picked up. And I remember looking at the doctor and her kind of, coming down to my level and just saying that she was sorry that there was nothing else that they could do. And I asked her, like, is the baby gonna be born alive, or am I gonna see her stop breathing? And that was the hardest thing for me, was to know that Halle was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong with her. Her heart rate through the whole thing was normal. She was completely normal, that it was my body that couldn't keep her in. I struggled with that for a really long time, knowing how perfect and normal she was, but it was my fault.
It wasn't your fault.
It was my body that couldn't sustain her pregnancy.
We'd been fighting for this baby girl and praying, and we gave it everything that we had. We had so many people praying with us, standing with us, and we never wavered for 1 second. We had full faith that everything would be just fine. This is going to be a miracle baby. This is going to be a testimony. This is going to be a story of perseverance that ended well. And when I saw our doctor's face, I knew it wasn't going to be that story.
And from there, they wheeled me from triage back into labor and delivery, and they just said, your body will just continue, and we'll deliver her, and it did.
Yeah, from the time that we really knew Halle would be born, it was about a 54-hour period, just excruciating. Just as quickly as it happened, she went home. I don't know that there is a greater pain, to be quite honest. As believers in Jesus Christ, who had faith, who didn't waver, who gave it all that we had, no matter how difficult it is, we're going to take the stance of trust through the pain, and maybe not even figuring out why this happened. I said, I'm okay with that, but we're going to trust in God.
One thing the doctors or the hospital staff that are involved in kind of the grieving process and what happens after a loss like this is they said, you're going to have to find your new normal, but to help you find that, continue something in memory of her and doing something in memory of her. And, one of that thing for me was really, really, I had picked up my love again for creating and for sewing and making that quilt and those blankets, and that was something I continued after losing her. Now that I'm not on bed rest anymore, and I was working on my sewing machine, and I was determined that this quilt that I had started for her, for Halle in the hospital, that I was going to finish. And I found a lot of healing through that, a lot of working with my hands and creating with my hands, and just knowing like she's not here anymore. I mean, the amount of tears that I, shed on that yarn and on that fabric was the Lord just really working through that process and that grieving process for me.
And we're still grieving. I mean, there's still days where we miss her. Good news is we'll see her again. And that's very encouraging.
It was very quickly, within 4 months of losing her, that I found out I was pregnant again. We certainly weren't ready for it. We weren't planning for it. I was excited for the hope again, but scared.
For me, at least, I had some confidence of whatever the case happens, I think we're in good hands. That was how I felt about it.
Yeah, we had the same high-risk doctor that we had felt so connected with Halle's loss. I mean, they told me I would have weekly visits, I'd have weekly shots, I'd be on a list of medication that I would need, I would have weekly ultrasounds. That was 21 weeks or 22 weeks along with Sienna. And we got the news at a doctor's visit that things were looking not great, like how they started to with Halle, and that I needed to immediately go on strict bed rest. And again, I was willing to do anything. Luckily with this one, they allowed me to be at home on bed rest on the couch. And I was making baby clothes, baby headbands, blankets. I followed every doctor's order, drinking a gallon of water a day, only getting up to go to the bathroom. I laid there on our couch for 4 months, weekly doctor's visits, weekly appointments, weekly checks, and still continued to create and to sew. And we had her happy, healthy, great delivery, pregnancy actually on her due date. Blew all the doctors' minds away. After I had her, I just kind of continued like this. I really was this do-it-yourself type of mentality, creating, making things while baby napped. I had an idea, an inspiration that I wanted to make a pair of boot socks that stuck out of the top of my boots that had a little bit of lace on them.
when Melissa made it and told me how much of a pain it was to make, that she would never ever make one again. And we chuckle about that because I was in full support.
I wanted to wear them. They took me forever to make that I might as well wear them wherever I go because they took me so long. Then I get my wear out of them. And everywhere I went, people would stop and ask me where I got them. And I'd tell them I'd make them. And these strangers would be like, can you make a pair for me? And they'd hand me a scrap piece of paper with their phone number and email on it. I'd buy a pair from you. Before I knew it, I just had this like pile of random scraps of paper in my purse of people who wanted these socks.
Cards.
Yeah, and Rick said, wow, it seems like you're getting a lot of interest with these. Why don't you put them up online and see if they'd sell? And I had started a little online shop of just all the little baby things I was making. And so I put up this pair of boot socks with lace on the top, and they sold instantly. I was kind of shocked. And then all of a sudden I looked back and my email was just full, hundreds of purchase requests for this pair. I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this really happening? Do I take these offline? I don't have these. I don't have the materials to make all these.
Within 48 hours, we had over 400 purchase requests. Not only requests, but people that had already paid for this product.
And literally, we had a business start that we didn't even know was a business.
We knew nothing about the industry. We knew nothing about women's apparel. We knew nothing about shipping, logistics, any of that. Operations for the manufacturing, or it was just complete pandemonium. And Melissa started coming out with some different ideas and some scarves, and she had different inspirations for boot socks, and then she had inspirations for boot cuffs, and she started creating this category. And I'm watching my incredible wife totally come alive because she's having a blast with it. Between all of the social media and Melissa creating something from her heart that people really liked, I did know that we had a business on our hands. Our first complete year of business in 2012, we had done over $1 million of business. It was the wildest thing that you've ever seen. That is not normal by any stretch. And healthy company, we were learning, we were figuring it out. And in 2012, I had a gut feeling that we needed to be on Shark Tank. And I told Melissa about it, and I applied a handful of times between February 2012 to May 2012, and I didn't hear a word. And then the fateful day came where I had a phone call with a really good friend of mine that was considering helping us with the business, possibly partnering with us. And he told me, I really feel like you're supposed to be on Shark Tank. And so I laughed because I hadn't told him a thing about it. And he just said, I've been praying for you guys and I feel like that's the route. And I said, that's exactly what is on my heart. We did go to LA, we filmed. Things went perfectly, couldn't have gone any better from a business perspective. We got the exact partner that we wanted in Barbara Corcoran, and things were off and running at that point. So now we're only 5 years into the company. Melissa has a design team around her. We've got the most incredible staff you have ever seen on the planet, with talented people that are go-getters, that are hard chargers, that also have fun together. And we're really just scratching the surface.
When we lost Halle, we were trusting that something good would come out of this. I didn't expect to see it or know what it was, but I wanted to know that I would get to heaven and see her, and that I would hear what the impact her life and her very short life had on others. And I just think it's so neat that the Lord had this story unfold for us that took such a tragedy, that took such a painful experience in our lives, and now turned it into a booming, exploding business. One that, now we've been able to build orphanages in India. We've been able to take the orphans off the street and give them a place to call home, give them food and fresh running water, pulling girls that are being sex trafficked at the border in Nepal out and giving them skilled trade so they can re-enter society empowered. And we really have been able to take this painful experience and actually see the good that has come out of it.
And it's still unfolding. I think the story has many more chapters to go.